Hello friends. On March 8, 2014, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia at 12:42 a.m. This flight was headed to Beijing, China, and it was expected to be a routine journey. On board were 227 passengers, including men, women, and children, along with 10 flight attendants and 2 pilots. The pilots were Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, who was 53 years old, and First Officer Farik Hamid, who was just 27. Captain Zahari was one of the most experienced pilots at Malaysia Airlines. He had a long and successful career and was respected by his colleagues. First Officer Farik was still in training and needed this flight to complete his certification as a pilot. The flight took off smoothly and flew in the right direction for about 20 minutes. At 1:08 a.m., Captain Zahari reported to Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control that the plane was flying at 35,000 feet. Everything seemed to be normal. The aircraft crossed the Malaysian coastline and entered the South China Sea, flying toward Vietnam. This was a common route, and nothing unusual happened during this time. However, this was the last time anyone would hear from Flight MH370. After Captain Zahari's routine communication, something strange occurred. At 1:21 a.m., just 13 minutes after his last message, the plane vanished from radar screens. It disappeared suddenly, and this event shocked air traffic controllers in both Malaysia and Vietnam. Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control did not notice the plane's disappearance right away. They initially thought the plane had simply flown out of their radar range as it entered Vietnam's airspace. However, Vietnamese controllers saw that MH370 had entered their airspace, but then it vanished from their radar too. They tried to communicate with the flight, but there was no response. After 18 minutes of unsuccessful attempts to reach the plane, the Vietnamese controllers informed their counterparts in Kuala Lumpur about the disappearance. In normal situations like this, the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center in Kuala Lumpur would be notified within an hour. However, it took 4 hours before any emergency response began. By the time a search operation was initiated, it was already 6:32 a.m., the time when the plane was supposed to land in Beijing. The realization that something was wrong set in, and search efforts quickly started. Given the flight's path, the search began in the South China Sea, an area between Malaysia and Vietnam. The search operation was an international effort involving 34 ships and 28 aircraft from 7 different countries. Everyone hoped to find some trace of the missing plane. However, despite all their efforts, there was no sign of the aircraft. Days turned into weeks, and the search yielded nothing. About 4 days after the plane went missing on March 12, reports surfaced that while the plane had disappeared from civilian radar, it had been spotted by military radar. This was surprising information. The military radar showed that the plane was last seen at 22 am flying not over the South China Sea, but near the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, heading northward away from its intended destination of Beijing. This revelation raised many questions. Where was the plane going? Did it fly toward India or crash somewhere in Kazakhstan? As days passed, more information emerged. Investigators analyzed satellite data and discovered that the plane had tried to communicate with the satellite. This communication attempt is quite common for large aircraft like the Boeing 777, as they often connect with satellites to facilitate communication. However, in this case, when MH370 attempted to connect, it did not transmit any specific location data, it only established a connection. Using the satellite's information, investigators tried to approximate the plane's location. They theorized that when the satellite received the plane's communication, it would have turned its antenna in the direction of the aircraft. By analyzing the angle of the antenna, scientists could estimate where the plane might have been. Although they could not determine its exact location, they were able to create a circle on the map that indicated potential areas where the plane could have been when it tried to connect with the satellite. The plane attempted to communicate with the satellite 7 times, resulting in 7 different circles drawn on the map. Each circle represented a different time the plane tried to connect. The last circle indicated the latest time the plane tried to communicate, and it covered a vast area reaching from Kazakhstan and China to Indonesia and Australia. This last point, known as the 7th arc, became a focal point for further searches. The 7th arc was located about 2,000 kilometers west of Australia, and it encompassed a large expanse of ocean that had not been thoroughly explored. As search operations continued, the yellow-shaded regions on the map showed where search efforts had taken place. The orange area represented the priority search area where the majority of resources were focused. By April 2014, surface searches in the ocean were stopped because they were deemed ineffective. It was clear that if the plane had crashed, it would have sunk to the ocean floor rather than floating on the surface. Thus, deep ocean searches began. This search operation became the largest and most expensive search effort in aviation history, costing over $160 million. For weeks, months, and even years, search teams combed through the ocean, but they found no trace of the aircraft. 3 years after the disappearance in July 2015, the first piece of debris from the plane was discovered on Reunion Island, located east of Madagascar. This piece was a flapper on a part of the plane's wing. Its discovery was a significant breakthrough, confirming that the aircraft had indeed crashed in the ocean. In 2018, an American company named Ocean Infinity signed a contract with the Malaysian government to conduct further searches under a no-fly, no-fee agreement. This meant they would only be paid if they found the plane. Ocean Infinity utilized highly advanced underwater surveillance technology to search the ocean floor. During their search, they discovered that the area around the 7th arc contained many underwater volcanoes, cliffs, and mountains, making the search more challenging. While the search continued, investigators also examined the backgrounds of the passengers and crew. They looked for any signs that someone might have hijacked the plane. Several theories emerged about what might have happened to MH370. One theory suggested that the plane had experienced an electrical failure or technical malfunction that caused it to disappear from radar. Others speculated that Captain Zahari could have intentionally turned off the plane's communication systems and crashed it into the ocean. Many people questioned why Captain Zahari would do this. Some suggested that he might have been in a bad mental state or even suicidal. Others speculated about possible hijacking or a terrorist attack. A key point raised in this theory was that the plane had turned nearly 180 degrees back towards Malaysia, which would have required manual intervention by the pilot. Additionally, the flight path taken was said to have been above the border between Thailand and Malaysia, which raised suspicions that the maneuver was deliberate to evade radar detection. Another point of interest was that Zahari had a flight simulator at home, and on it he had mapped out a flight path that was similar to MH370's actual route. Some saw this as evidence of intent, but officials in charge of the investigation refuted this idea. They pointed out that Zahari was a highly respected and experienced pilot with no known personal issues. If he had intended to commit suicide by crashing the plane, there would likely have been signs of distress in his behavior or life which were absent. Another theory suggested that there were hijackers on the plane. This theory gained traction when investigators found 2 passengers with stolen passports. These passengers were Iranian men who were trying to reach Europe. However, after further investigation, it was concluded that they were likely not terrorists, but rather individuals trying to travel illegally. Interpol confirmed that they did not pose a threat, leading to the dismissal of the hijacking theory. The third theory, which gained considerable support, was that the passengers and crew may have lost consciousness due to a lack of oxygen. This could have been caused by a fire in the cockpit or a sudden technical failure. In this scenario, the plane would have continued flying on autopilot until it eventually ran out of fuel and crashed. This theory provided a plausible explanation for the plane's disappearance, as it could account for the lack of communication and the sudden change in flight path. As time passed, more unusual theories emerged, such as the idea that the plane had been abducted by aliens or that it had been shot down by the military. Some even speculated that Russian President Vladimir Putin knew the location of the plane. However, most of these theories were considered far-fetched and lacking evidence. Fast forward to 2022, and the mystery of Flight MH370 took a new turn. Richard Godfrey, a retired aerospace engineer, claimed to have made significant progress in solving the mystery.
Richard Godfrey combined data from British Inmarsat satellites, figures from Boeing, Australian oceanographers, NU WhisperNet amateur radio wave technology.
I've been tracking back through the data, and out of that tracking MH370, I'm sure they will be able to find the aircraft.
He utilized advanced radio wave technologies and data from various sources, including British satellites and oceanographers, to track the plane's likely path. By analyzing reflections of radio waves, he developed a computer program that could help identify the flight paths of aircraft based on weak signals. Godfrey's calculations suggested that MH370 might lie directly on the 7th arc, approximately 4 kilometers underwater. While this area had already been searched, Godfrey believed that the previous efforts might have missed this specific location. He proposed that a new search operation be conducted within a 40 nautical mile radius of this point, which would be a smaller area than previous searches. The potential for a breakthrough in the investigation brought renewed hope. Alongside Godfrey's research, drift analysis was also conducted, which examined how ocean currents might have carried debris from the crash site. According to this analysis, some pieces of the aircraft could have reached islands like Madagascar, which aligned with previous discoveries. To date, 27 pieces of debris have been found on various beaches and islands, supporting the theory that MH370 crashed into the Indian Ocean. Each piece discovered adds another piece to the puzzle, but no one has yet located the main wreckage of the aircraft. The story of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 remains one of the greatest mysteries in aviation history. Families of the passengers continue to seek answers, holding on to hope that one day the truth will emerge. As technology advances and new methods are developed for searching the ocean floor, there is a possibility that more clues will surface. The case continues to draw attention worldwide, not just for the tragic loss of life, but for the lessons it teaches about aviation safety communication and the importance of thorough investigations. In conclusion, the disappearance of Flight MH370 is a haunting reminder of the unpredictability of air travel. Despite the many theories, investigations, and technological advancements, the exact circumstances of that fateful night remain unclear. The families of the passengers and crew deserve closure, and the world watches in hope that one day the mystery will finally be solved. Until then, the story of MH370 serves as a testament to the challenges faced in modern aviation and the enduring quest for answers. Thank you very much.